Hey everybody, Jay the Fish Guy here. So today I want to talk about LifeRock. I was talking with a friend of mine, he lives halfway across the country, and he was thinking about setting up a small nano tank. And we were talking about rock, what should he do for rock? He's like, oh, I've heard about base rock, obviously there's LifeRock, what's your take on it? And in my head I'm going, wow, that would make a great video. So here we are. So my personal preference when talking about rock is to use LifeRock. And where that comes from is the fact that I typically have on hand a nice 100-gallon stock tank filled with cured, clean LifeRock. So I've got like a couple of damsels trucking around in here, but other than that, it's very, very minimal. There's just circulation, there's no skimmer, no nothing. All this rock is stuff that's already been through the curing process. There's no organics on it. I don't throw any rock in here that's at all questionable in terms of pests, parasites, hitchhikers, things like that. So whenever I do a new setup for a client, or for example, like we just did the bank tank not too long ago, I pull rock from in here. And one of his questions was, how do you know when you have clean, cured LifeRock? Well, when you can take a piece of LifeRock out of whatever system you're buying from, whether it's, another hobbyist that or you're going down to the local pet store, if you can take it out of the water and it doesn't smell like low tide. If you can smell the rock tank before you even get to it, that's a good indicator that it's probably not cured, clean rock. So right now, this has little to no smell whatsoever. You can dunk it underwater and, swish it around. There isn't a whole lot of stuff that comes out of it, again, like organics or just waste. If people end up curing their rock in the same tank that they end up storing it in, and they just simply do water changes and they never actually go through a real curing process, and all that dead organics matter is still in the rock, that's not clean rock, and you definitely don't want to use that to start your tank. Or at least that's my recommendation anyway. So when you're going to find LifeRock, keep that in mind. Now, a lot of people are of the mindset they don't want to do LifeRock because they're concerned about pests or hitchhikers, or just simply maybe it's a moral decision that you don't want to pull rock out of the ocean. That's fine. There's actually a few options available to you that you can get the benefits of LifeRock and none of the hassles of dead base rock. And actually, before I go into that, let's talk about the dead base rock real quick. I cannot think of a single tank that I've built over the years where I've used base rock, dead rock, or recommended it to a client. And that's been kind of a long-running belief of mine ever since the early days when the whole base rock thing really started to take off. Yes, I'm showing my age a little bit. I've been doing this, again, professionally for like 14 years, so I've seen a lot of things come and go. And when I saw people starting to use base rock for their tanks, maybe it would take as much as 6 months, 9 months, a year, what have you, but then you just start simply having issues. Algae issues from nowhere. Water parameters test fine, but they still struggle with the tank. And I always theorize that, hey, it's probably that base rock. It's just not on the same level. Yes, you can seed it with beneficial bacteria, but it's just not the same. And, now it's a little more common knowledge that, hey, even with base rock, you have to cure it. I've seen people doing acid baths, trying to get rid of these trapped organics that's even in your dead base rock that will lead to issues. So for me, yes, it's a little bit less expensive and potentially a lot less expensive depending on where you're going for your LifeRock to use the base rock to get started. But if your tank is going to have issues down the line because of that rock, or you're going to struggle to get started, and yes, again, you got the beneficial biological bacteria products that you can dump in, but for me and my experience and, from my customers that I've seen try this over the years, it's not quite the same. Okay, so I had my little rant about base rock and why I personally don't like it or use it, but now some options as opposed to just using LifeRock from the ocean. Again, like we talked about, whether you just simply don't want to deal with pests, or again, moral decision, you don't want to pull stuff from the ocean. Great. There is a company out in California called Reef rock. I've used them quite a bit over the years, both back when I worked at the LFS as well as, you know, now doing the whole installation and maintenance gig. Their rock, and I'll put a link up in the description. They have an awesome website, lots of details. I'll go broad strokes for right now just for the sake of saving time. Their rock is man-made. It's artificially colored, and then it's tanked. And if I remember correctly, it's been a little while since I've read up on their literature. If I remember correctly, though, it is tanked in very, very large greenhouses for up to and including a year before it's sold as a finished product. So you are getting the benefits of biologically active rock without any of the pests, the hitchhikers, or anything like that. Price points can vary depending on where in the country you're buying it, depending on the pet store that you're buying it from. The last I knew, they didn't sell direct. So you would have to deal with an LFS as far as getting some. Or if you can't find it, reach out to me, let me know. I've had to do a couple of drop ship situations with that stuff if you're interested. I'm not trying to sell here. I'm just saying, hey, if you like the idea of it, you go check it out. You want to buy it, you can't find it local, give me a shout. So the Real Reef Rock is a great choice because, again, biologically active, you get all the benefits of live rock, none of the negatives. And I like the fact that it's already colored to begin with, and even though the color can potentially fade over time, generally by that point your natural coralline algae has been growing and filling in, and it actually looks great. It blends together very well, it looks very natural, and you're not looking at a stark white barren landscape when you first start out your tank. So for me, it's just really win-win in all scenarios. There's also another company, Caribsea. They make this stuff here. It's called LifeRock. I don't think it's quite as good of a product. It might be easier to get a hold of for you. You can actually buy that like straight through Amazon or any of the other aquatics retailers online because you can buy it dry. So this stuff, they're saying that it is sprayed with some kind of encapsulated bacteria. I'm not even going to begin to pretend to understand the whole chemistry and science behind it, but the gist of it is it has bacteria that's sealed on the outside of this rock, and when put in salt water, the bacteria emerges and becomes alive. I have used this rock in the same fashion as the Real Reef Rock to get a tank started up and running quickly, and it's worked, and it looks good. The color is not quite as good as the Real Reef Rock. Price points is going to be less expensive because you get to get it shipped dry. It's again another good choice when you're looking at alternatives other than true live rock. You know, and again, the fact that it's colored, it's nice. It's not, again, not as good as the Real Reef Rock, but it still looks pretty decent. And once the coralline algae starts growing on it, it's really not all that noticeable as far as looking fake. You know what I mean? So that's my take on live rock. Again, you know, the fact that I have so much on hand and I can speak for it being clean and pest-free, I'm a little biased that way. But there are options available to you that, in my opinion, are far better than doing just the dead base rock. Because the work you have to do with that base rock to make sure that you don't have issues, and then it's bleach white, and I just don't understand why people would want to start their tank that way, and in my opinion, start off on the wrong foot right from the get-go. Again, just my experience over the years. So take that for what you will. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Appreciate all the support. If you're not a subscriber, please click the subscribe button, and we'll catch you next time.